All right, for those of you who stumble upon this video and have no idea what a mapper is and you're just trying to figure out what I'm talking about, I am going to show how to make a tool used in cabling to map out your rooms. You can put, this is for coax cable specifically, but you can actually use similar ones for Ethernet and all sorts of different devices. In a nutshell, you put one of these controllers on, well actually this is the controller, but one of the mappers on a location inside a house or wherever you're going to do it. Then go to where the smart panel, the DMARC, wherever the lines are going. And don't ignore the mess. It's because I do work. See, any one time you see a clean work area, somebody doesn't do work. See, I do work, therefore it's a mess. But when you put the mapper on a line, and then when you go to the location where the lines come together, hit a controller, you get a corresponding light. I'm not sure if my camera is going to pick that up. I found this one in an attic. It was abandoned by another tech. Either he lost all of his controllers and decided to just dump it because he knew he'd have to go out and buy a new set. And I tested it and found it comes up with different colors. This one's blue. On mine, it's yellow, which tells me they run basically on the same system. And I hadn't really given it a lot of thought as to how they work. But one day, my red one came apart. And you pull this out here, and it came apart, and I realized it's just a resistor put in a little cup receptacle here. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's like super easy to make. I can do that. I hadn't given it much thought. I was assuming some kind of frequency of signal was going out to get the different signals. And it just sends out a current and it measures what's coming back. Which explains why I have had times where I get different color responses when I was either wasn't using a specific mapper and I was getting a color response for it. Or what happened one time, I got a red response, and I'm thinking, okay, that's the red line. I go through all this different stuff, and it wasn't. It took me a while to figure out, but I was getting a false red response, and my red was on a different line. But yeah, it's just a resistor in here. So after I saw that, it's like, shoot, I can make that. So I wanted to finish up a few other projects I was working on, and then get it going. So that's what they're used for, and this is how to make a replacement. Take your controller, and you need resistors. And I will put in the comments description on the information that I found for the different thresholds. The colors will vary by your controller. And of course you can make several of one color if you're doing mini boxes, clients, or often referred to as DTAs. And client boxes that don't require a lot of signal, you can make those all blue and leave. I like using the DVR for red and yellow for the MTAs or modems, things that require more signal and get more peaky. And therefore you can save yourself a little bit of trouble and just make, because if you have like 5 boxes that don't require much signal, you can just put them all on there and you're done. They come with long leads, and I'll show you 2 ways to make them. One way will require no soldering, but that will could cause them to fail in the future because they may not be held tightly. Part of it you can't solder, I found. But I made this as a test, and basically a test of concept, and with the resistors mapped out with a bunch of resistor patterns, what would and would not give different ratings. Some of them have a pretty generous threshold, and some of them are very specific. Use my little alligator clamps. All right, after reorganizing my trouble when you're in a hurry and kind of grab on and try and do some of this stuff. All right. So actually, you can test it before you even pull them out of the bracket, which I do recommend testing them first because, oh, and it won't matter if they don't really have face or left or right. I mean, there's not a wrong way to connect. But you do lose these from time to time. And so I discovered how to make them. It's like, shoot, we can do that. And that way, instead of buying a whole new set, you can just build your replacements. And I was pricing out a few things, and one source I found came. It was probably less than a quarter, or no, less than a quarter of a penny each. It's kind of dependent upon connection, so you want to make sure you're getting a good, the exciting, the agonizing, slow process of doing some of these things. It was 417 out of 47. There's a difference. All right, blue. And just make sure that you are connecting. I would recommend connecting them first to make sure you're getting the right rating of what you're wanting. Sometimes point of variance can occur. And then just put colored tape on them when you're done. But just basically make a little 6-inch or so long jumper. Put your proper fitting on one end. On this end, you want to make sure that you get all the braid back, because you don't want that to short or bridge anything, because then it won't work. Once you make sure that's all back, trimmed up tight, take your, I did all these earlier, but me, Mr. Perfectionist, had to make sure. All right, basically, take your resistor, put it on towards the end, and then you can have the whole tail, just wrap it around the stinger. Stinger is the center wire. I've not heard an official explanation as to why it's called the stinger. I have a theory. When I was new to cabling, I was first trying to make a fitting. I was having a hard time getting a fitting on the cable, so I put my finger over the end and pressed down. And then I had my theory as to how the stinger got its name. Went just a little lead off. And of course I use my pair of pliers for help prop up my soldering gun. But you could just probably be able to get away with a tight twist on there and making sure that it's good. I would pretty much recommend making sure, if you can, solder it just to make sure. It doesn't have to be pretty, just make sure it sticks. Just to ensure you maintain good contact. Then, just basically bend the resistor down. Use the tail on the other to wrap around the braid. The braid you cannot solder. I've tried. It's such a small wire. It's made out of aluminum. It dissipates heat very rapidly, and you basically can't solder it. So take your other wire, wrap it around to try to get as much as you can in contact. Then have several rolls of electrical tape somewhere. I want to have to get out my other roll because I guess I will. By now you might be figuring out, hey, that's why he doesn't make tech videos. He doesn't do them very well. And once you get it all together, the key is to just put this on there just to keep it from any shorting out, give it a little bit of protection. Now, to hold that braid together in good contact, we need zip ties. You can hold almost anything together with zip ties. I advise against trying to hold aircraft together with zip ties, but I've not tried it. That will hold the lower wire in good contact with the braid and keep the tape from unraveling. Something to keep in mind is, especially if for coax, for example, being the exposed wire, it's going to be more likely to pick up ingress and may cause some issues there. I've not noticed a correlation with the different resistor ratings and different ranges in the ingress that I have detected on it, but I have noticed it tends to be clumped together. So I'm not sure if that was by dumb luck or actually that had to do with anything. But and then after you make them, test it. Blue. Now all I need is blue tape. I knew I forgot something. But basically, that's how you make them. Oh, I started to say earlier, I don't know if I finished that story. Editing does wonders. At any rate, you can make these for a bunch of things. Many purposes and uses. 10K for this set gives a green. But one source I found for resistors was less than a quarter penny each. And wow, that's cheap. Minimum purchase is $5,000. I really didn't need $23 plus shipping in just one class, because really it's going to be over $100. I need at least 4 different classes for the 4 different lights. So then I'm like shipping and everything else. It's like that's not going to work well for me. I just don't see that working well. For best result, I would recommend a 1/4 inch of lead before it gets in contact. The resistor would contact the stinger. This way the resistor can fold down a bit. Clothespins are probably the most handy thing I have as far as my tools not intended to be tools. Using to hold everything from models together, wires. Doesn't take long for that solder to kick in. Just kind of feel where the knob, where the braid starts. Put your zip tie up there. You can use pliers if you want, get better grip. Get as tight of a squeeze on there as you can. Highly recommend testing them afterwards. Green. That easy. Takes a few minutes, but for probably just a fraction of the cost. Actually, I was trying to think of what much would it be, because a lot of these resistors I won't need anytime soon. And I'm thinking, what would that cost me? Almost nothing, really. I'd be surprised if it was 10 cents for each. Certainly, it's bigger, harder to lose, much easier to make and replace. So there you are. You too can make mappers. And if you really want to get elaborate, I suppose you could make your own controller. Yeah, actually, it really wouldn't be hard. You could even just do it with a meter if you wanted. I suppose on long runs the results could vary. Anyway, with all of this, your results may vary, or the old adage goes, your mileage may vary. Test the couple different resistors. If you don't have a elaborate set like what I have to go through several different resistors, find out which ones are giving you the what response. I found in between them, it's not going straight from like red to green to blue. It was actually going. Some of them had a threshold that I found. Some of them were very specific. Only that one. There might be some more delicate instruments might be able to find more variations as to how much resistance would generate, but there are gaps between them, and some of them would give you just the negative response, and some would give you a short response, color and things. It was kind of interesting. So the ratings that I'm putting in the description are just what I found. You may find slightly variations on your controller if you have different manufacturer, different companies, slightly different thresholds. So feel free to experiment and post any information if you find something that for others. Well, have fun.